This evening on the panel discussion, we take a look at the Dog's Liability for Attacks bill from the perspective of animal advocates. What can we learn about animal behavior and how to better control our dogs? Joining us is veterinarian and co-founder of the Animal Welfare Foundation, Dr. Gabrielle Beckford, and Pamela Lawson, the head of the Jamaica Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having us.
So it's almost law. It will become an act, you know, if the Senate doesn't throw it out. But is it a fair act? Is it doing what it says to protect people from animal attacks? So let's start with you, Lawson.
I think it's a start right now. There are those who have issues with it, and the government has actually put in some amendments that were all contributed by stakeholders. So it is not as, what I would say, as aggressive as it was originally, the first draft. But as I always say to people, the government has to send a strong message. It's not that we have a pandemic of attacks, but when we do have attacks, it tends to be quite vicious. And in general, we're used to seeing dogs all over on the road, regardless of breed, of where they come from. If it's uptown, downtown, country, it doesn't matter.
Doc, what do you think? It has two levels of liability, civil and criminal. Is that fair for an attack by your dog?
Okay, well, I think they just want to send a clear message, you know, that dog attacks and dog bites won't be tolerated. And if the act is passed, I think we just need to find solutions and find preventative measures to, you know, like prevent these attacks from happening. So,
but you're looking at penalties from $500,000 to $3 million, and you can even be in prison for 15 years.
Yes.
In the case where, you know, somebody is attacked and dies. And you think that's reasonable? That's a good place to start.
Well, it depends on how long they take to amend it after this amendment, because, you know, they take a bit of time to amend these acts sometimes. So maybe in, say, 10 years from now, the value of the Jamaican dollar, we don't know what it will be like. So, you know, well, God forbid, but, you know, that's the reality of things. So I'm thinking that's why they just set it at that price in case, you know, the dollar slips and the value isn't worth much anymore. But I do want to point out, though, that we should just focus on solutions and preventative measures. You know, just try and prevent your dog from biting people. And the owner that trains their dog, you know, they're actually, in a way, sort of training themselves to be a leader, to command respect, and they're also teaching themselves how to express patience. So that's what we should focus on.
All right, let's talk about some of the solutions. They've mentioned in the law the duties of the owners.
Correct.
Right, so you're supposed to do certain things to ensure that your animal doesn't affect anybody else. Is this enough? You're supposed to keep them under control, put a muzzle on them, I put restraints on them, always.
Or a lead.
Right.
They have taken off the fact that you have to wear a muzzle at all times when they're outside, because animals lose heat through panting. So we would have animals dropping down from heat stroke, left, right, and center. So the idea is that if you have the animal on the street, it must be on a lead.
Do we find that people have these leads? They have the muzzles to confine, contain, control their animals?
People have them. Do they use them?
Yes.
So that's half the problem. Most people know what is required of them. They do, but they're just not doing it. We know we're not to have our animals on the streets. We know that the dogs, if they're out in public, they must be on a lead. Things like that. It's a civil thing to do.
Will this law change anything in the way we treat our animals, especially our dogs?
Yes, I'm hoping it changes our culture, and I'm hoping that we will start to focus on the Keeping of Animals Act, which states that we should, you know, keep our animals in a restricted area. And that act and this new amended Dog Liability to Attack Act, like, it needs to be enforced. So even when we put in these measures, like, we need to actually have enforcement so that the culture of Jamaica is changed, We don't have people going attacking, you know, farmers' livestock and goats and just causing havoc in the community, you know, like, I think we would hope to see a cultural change, a cultural shift in how we...
Are you hopeful that things will change?
I'm hoping. I do strongly suspect rurally, agriculture industry takes a huge lick every year due to animals attacking livestock. I do have some doubts as to how effective it's going to be in the rural areas in particular.
Why?
It's just what it is. People have properties, they don't have the fence line, they don't have the ability to afford the fencing. And we do have a huge stray problem.
But the penalties, won't it force them to?
You're going to have a lot of dogs nowadays without owners.
Is that so? So we're going to have a bigger stray dog problem?
I strongly suspect you will.
But doesn't the Act deal with strays in any respect? How do we get rid of them from this? Because they are a nuisance.
That's a good question.
Yeah, the Pound Act, you know, would deal with the strays, but again, they need to amend the other supporting acts if they're going to be passing this law, this new act. So the Pound Act, the Animal Welfare Act, the Local Governance Act, the
Keeping of
Animals Act, yes.
Both of you seem to be of the view that this is a good piece of legislation. It's a good start.
It's a start.
To protect people from animals. But there is some concern, I get it from both of you, about our treatment of animals, what's going to happen next. We may have a much bigger stray dog problem in Jamaica.
I think it's possible, and more than likely, especially if we have an incident after this act is passed, and the penalties are harsh. I think it could cause major fear amongst many people, and they'll disown their animals. I mean, we saw it in St. Anne, where the child got injured when we went up on Saturday, and a lot of people are now saying, oh, we don't want their dogs, we don't want the dogs.
So is that part of your role, to get strays off the street?
No, it's not.
But it's something that you do anyway?
If an animal is injured, whether it be a stray or wanders into a property, then by all means, if we will go in and assist and collect the animal. But I tell people, I'm not running down no dog. Not even Usain Bolt can run down a dog if he's set to go. So we help where we can. People bring in strays, or in, you know, whether they're injured or intact. We take in animals. We refuse no animals.
You take them in and do what with them?
If they can be put up for adoption, then fine. They're put up for adoption. If not, I'm afraid a large percentage are euthanized. This might sound cold.
Why don't we put them down?
A large percentage, unfortunately, are euthanized.
And we still have so many?
Yes.
Well, the problem is the spaying and neutering. People don't spay and neuter their dogs, so they have babies uncontrollably, and when they have the babies, they give the babies away. But the point is, people need to learn how to be responsible dog owners. So if you're having a dog, or if you know, there's lots of dog lovers. So if you're going to get a dog or adopt a dog, you need to learn a bit about dog behavior, you know, how to socialize your dog with other dogs, how to socialize your dog with other humans, you know, how to pick up on bad behavior, how to stop it. The dog is a reflection of the owner. So yes, so if, just like with children, you know, dogs actually have the intelligence of a 2-year-old child. So just like with children, you need to train them, you know, like, this is bad, bad dog, this is good, good dog. Yes, sit, stay, don't pass this fence line, you know.
I think most of us have dogs for security. So we need them to be aggressive.
You need them to be aggressive.
We need controlled security dogs. We can't have dogs that just willy-nilly biting people without reason and thought, you know.
And how is that animal protecting your property if it's out on the street?
It's not.
Good point. Good point. But in terms of understanding animal behaviors, for instance, what makes a dog aggressive? Is it the ganja that we give them, the ganja tea?
You give your dog ganja?
I mean, lots of people do that culturally, to make them more aggressive, to respond to intruders, to deal with prey lastly, that sort of thing.
I find the more attention and more you put into your animals, the more protective they naturally become.
Yeah, just a little effort, a little love, you know.
It works.
Yeah.
People have been talking about registration of dogs. Would that help any of the circumstances?
you name me a country in this world that once you're proactive in your animal welfare, and animal welfare is very important in any society, right? Once you're proactive about it, and that includes registration, I hear people say, oh, they can't put a collar and a tag on their dogs because of this and that. If you were in the US, Canada, the UK, whatever.
You wouldn't have a choice.
You wouldn't have a choice. You would do it.
But why do we have a choice here in Jamaica?
Enforcement. It's not enforced.
There is a law that requires you
yes,
to do that?
The Keeping
There
of
is a law in the
Animals
books,
Act.
yes.
The Keeping of Animals Act actually says that the owner should be licensed and the dog should have some sort of registration to prove that you're the owner.
And there is something under municipality as well.
And these acts are old and it's never been enforced.
Right. So people like me who are who have dogs and are just learning about the requirement for registration, what do we do now?
It's not happened yet. Until it's passed, it won't happen. I mean, even with this act, the biggest concern will be who's enforcing it.
Is it enforceable, practically?
It is enforceable, but...
Given what we have now, because we depend on you for a lot of things,
I mean,
care and...
The police will be able to enforce or levy charges against individuals. And like you said, the fines are quite high, which is a good deterrent, of course. Nothing hurts more than your pocket. And failure to be able to meet those fines, you're looking at criminal liability. That's scary.
So people who have the dogs now and are a little bit worried, they're probably thinking maybe I should give the dog up because of the history of the dog or what have you. We don't want to encourage them to put them out on the street so they become strays.
That is key.
What do they do with them if they are at this point where they think they can't keep them anymore?
They learn how to be a good dog owner.
That's it?
Yes.
In actual fact, it's not something I want to encourage because I do believe that we just have to accept our responsibilities. If there became a law that dictated how we raised our children and you didn't like it, you're going to give up your children? Of course not. But for those who really see no other option because they cannot fulfill the requirements of keeping their animals within the confines of their property, I'm going to say to them, don't dump them in the gullies, fling them on the roads. Then either give JSPC a call or bring them in. It's not something I want to see happening, but I prefer that than having them on the road.
The case of the little boy in St. Anne has people talking about what should have happened, what shouldn't have happened. Is there anything that anybody can do when they're attacked by a dog or a group of dogs? Is there anything you can do to save yourself?
The most key thing is to not run because chasing triggers, you know, like that predatory behavior in dogs, so they want to chase the thing that's running away from them. So chasing actually makes it worse.
A bit like when you see a car driving by and the dogs chase the car. It's a chase that's fun.
They like to chase, so don't run away. And also, if you can prevent them from actually charging at you, just show dominance, like, you know, get big and get loud and let them know, you know, stay calm. Don't be panicky. Don't have like this really high pitch, oh my God, don't scream and all of that. Try to stay calm and dominant and let them know, you know, don't come near me, stay away, back away. You know, try to prevent it from even charging to you in the first place. If it charges, just pray, try to protect your face and ask for help, like scream for help if it charges and starts to attack you.
We were told to you know, get something, use a stone. Does that make them more aggressive or does it help?
Depending on the dogs. Some of them, remember nowadays, people agitate their animals. They don't teach them actual obedience and then they wonder why they're so difficult to control. So when they've been agitated, they've been flanked, they've been hit to become bad, that can be a trigger. Some breeds in particular, they're not backing down from that.
Well, as I talk about breeds, we have an issue. Or some people believe that Rottweilers and German Shepherds and Pit Bulls are more aggressive. They'll do much more damage than the mongrel.
They are bigger dogs, but they will want to please their owners. They take training very well. They're no worse. We always say the smaller the dog, the better the bite.
Yes.
If you look online, the 10 most dangerous breed of animals, most of them are not much bigger than that.
They're the ones that cause most of the attacks. Yeah, they would sort of have short man. You ever heard of short man syndrome? Yes.
Because we have a thing in Jamaica where the mongrel stays outside, and we have these little exotic dogs.
And they will bite you.
Those are the ones that will do some of the damage.
You go to any clinic and they will tell you, the smaller the dog, the better the bite.
So why is it that some dogs have this bad rap?
Because they do so much damage.
Their bite force.
Their bite force is a lot more. But I mean, I've seen a Jack Russell, which is a small dog, put a man into hospital.
In the case of this child from St. Anne, we've been seeing some reports from out of America where he's getting treatment.
And
the doctor told him was still six pit bulls.
I had to say
What's
this
the truth
week,
about that?
when I saw that, I laughed and I said the closest those dogs came to being a pit is when they walk past a latrine. Because there is no pit bull in them. They are good, old-fashioned mongrels. But I'm no disrespect, but it's journalistic sensationalism.
Where do we go from here? Because there's some people who are still clamoring that the criminal liability part is too harsh. They have a chance for the Senate to either hear them out or not. Is it too harsh?
There was a time where people were given the opportunity to lodge their concerns before it reached the House. It is a bit harsh, but like I said, sometimes we have to be strong, and the good are going to suffer for the bad, unfortunately. They need to actually do more with the other legislations. They need to update them. We have good laws, you know. It's just that some of them are so archaic. They need to be brought into the 21st century.
And this one is
enforced.
At least is this one at least in the 21st century?
Well, remember, the first act was in the 1800s.
Yeah, 1877 or something.
Exactly. Like now we're bringing it into you know, now 2021. That's a long time.
If we could look back at the registration of dogs, some vets say they offer this GPS services.
No, they
is
don't.
that something
they offer microchipping.
Microchipping, yeah, that you can locate, identify your animal and so on.
I don't believe that people who cannot afford the high cost of microchipping should be excluded from having animals. Microchipping, unless the government is going to subsidize it or fully cover the cost, is very expensive. It will never identify the animal that did the attack. We can't track them. It's just a very expensive way of identifying an animal.
Because in this act, the identification of the animal rests with where the dog sleeps, where the dog comes.
And unfortunately,
if you feed them and
anybody could be charged under that act who lives in the same yard as the animal, who feeds and cares for that animal, anybody who is associated.
So they would need to create some regulations for this act as well. And as I say, enforcement. So in terms of the licensing thing as well, I think the government should sort of step in and help with licensing and registering people who keep animals and the animals. So whether dog, cat, cow, goat, pig, all animals.
Okay. Here is something that people have been asking, people who have been attacked by dogs in the past. Can they benefit from this new law?
You always have the right to take civil action if you have been attacked or bitten. That's always been a fact.
But it has a 6 month...
Even under this act.
Yeah, but it has a 6 month thing. You have to...
Well, yeah, you don't walk into the police station a year after it's happened and say, I got bitten. You need to report it immediately. That's the whole point. But people could benefit from the old act. The old act, actual fact, was a civil liability act. You could always claim back money or make charges. You could go into a court, a petty session, and literally get $1 million because that was the limit on that court session. So you can always do that.
I'm thinking if you're gonna be civil, you're gonna be liable. What's the word? You're gonna have civil liability and also have criminal liability. So you're gonna have 2 sets of payments or fines. You're gonna have to pay for the damages done, and you also have to pay the government.
It's a bit like an O.J. Simpson where he went to trial. This act, the government has the right to fine you and or lock you up. And then after that, if they even find you guilty, person has the right now to go to civil court and sue you.
I think there should be maybe a warning before, before you're judged.
Dr. Beckford, I'm afraid we have to go now. Thanks so much for joining us, and Ms. Lawson, it's been our pleasure on CVM's discussion tonight.